All right, so welcome everybody to this morning's webinar. Today we're going to be showing the new features in our most recent release. It's actually not released yet, it's in beta, and that is 1.91. So the whole format of today's session, we have it scheduled for 1 hour. And the idea is that Sean McFeely, our product manager, will go through a formal process of showing everybody the new features in the software. And we'll record this session and we'll post a video of this session, a link to it on our website. So if anybody in your company wasn't able to attend and they want to, you'll be able to refer them to that. Check back in about a day for that video. It takes a while for us to post it. So anyway, the format, as we go through our standard operating procedure, is we're going to keep everybody muted. And what we want you to do, if you have questions as we go, use the chat button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Use the chat button, and you can type in your comment or your question. And one of our people will field that question, will text it to Sean, so that he can answer as we go without everybody just jumping in, because we don't want to have chaos in terms of noise if people are not muted. And then at the tail end of the session today, we'll open it up as we always do to question and answer, and that's pretty much anything goes at the end of the session. So just so everybody's aware, I hope, you know, we've the second half of last year, we focused an awful lot on interior construction for office spaces and barn dominiums. Going forward over the next 6 months, so everybody knows as well, we're going to be doing a lot of, so to speak, and a lot of that is going to be targeted at improving the performance of the program. You know, as everybody probably knows, you know, as we've added more and more features and we're transferring more and more data from the server onto your local computer, the system slows down. That's just a natural phenomenon. So a lot of what we're going to be doing over the next 6 months through multiple releases is working on our architecture to upgrade it so that on the one hand, we'll get better performance, quicker response times, and also hopefully address some of the nagging issues where people have had problems with jobs actually loading up. And sometimes it's just an issue with the browser, but we've had more and more of those intermittent issues. So a lot of this maintenance work that you'll see coming forward is going to help address both those issues. So anyway, that's kind of where we are high level. And with that, I'll just hand it over to Sean, and I hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. Yeah, we'll just kind of jump into this. There's kind of a lot to get through. So we'll jump in, and like he said, we'll open it up at the end for any questions that you have. I'm going to highlight some of the new stuff. There's more details that we could get into, and we can get into that at the end. But to try to get through everything, I'm just going to hop in here and go through several different things. And we'll start off in the settings. Couple settings to think about. I'm going to go into the setup wizard first. And we do have a new trim type. And this is going to be the top of wall trim for open walls. So we have top of wall trim, and now we have top of wall trim, and we have open top of wall trim. And so you can have different trim at the top of the wall for open walls versus closed walls. And one thing that you'll need to do is to come into the setup wizard here, and in this case I'm going to use this J channel in this database here for my open wall or open top of wall trim. And so I searched on that. I pulled up this particular J channel, and if you want to use a different trim material or any trim material for the open wall, open top of wall, you'll need to come in here and make sure that you have the open top of wall trim as a usage in here for this particular piece of trim, or whatever trim you want to use out of your inventory. So to do that, you just come in here and you move things from this side. These are all the different trims in the system, and if you want them to be available for the J trim, I have a lot of different things that I'm using this J trim for. Then you just come in here and you can search here, and then you can move them over to this side. And once they're on this side and you hit save and you save the setup wizard, then we'll have this J channel available for, in this case, the open top of wall trim. And so I've already done this. I came in here before and I already did this. So that is ready to go. The other thing that I wanted to point out in here is that we've added some more detail to some of these usages over here. And this especially came up with like headers, because before we only showed header, and I guess most of my headers are already over here. So on this side over here where we're just searching to add, I could put this overhead door trim into something that's being used with this J channel. But you can see that I have a lot of other headers over here for the walk door trim, for the sliding door trim, in this case, the overhead door trim. And before, we just had header. If you remember, like actually right now, it's just going to be header, and there would be a whole series of headers. There'd be multiple line items here that just say header. Didn't really know which header it was referring to. So we've just added this detail here of this is the overhead door trim for the header across the top of the overhead door. And then this one's going to be slider door trim, and then walk door. So we've added these descriptions to the usages to give more details here. Just kind of makes it a lot easier to understand what it is that you're adding over to this usage in order to apply that to the specific piece of trim. So in this case, I already added this open top of wall trim. I just wanted to come in here and show you that you will need to move that over if you want to use that. It's a new usage basically, and so you'll have to do some adjustments to get these different trims to be available. And you'll see this once we get into a model. We will have some open trim, top of wall trim, excuse me, and then you'll see this J channel is available. So I'm just going to hit cancel here because I've already done this. I think that's everything really that I wanted to do here in the setup wizard. One other setting item that I'll just jump on real quick. If you are kind of an administrator type person and if you're a supplier and an administrator and you have builders, we do have a new permission of view builder jobs in addition to the existing view distributor jobs. So now you can, for each user on your list, you can decide whether a user is going to see distributor jobs, it's really like the supplier, and builders, or just distributors. And I think where this came up, this request really came up, where if you are a distributor, supplier, and you have a bunch of people in-house, and some people don't deal with the builders, they just work on your in-house jobs that come in, then you can turn off the view builder jobs for that individual, and they're just going to see jobs for your database, your supplier database only, and they won't see all the builder jobs. So that will significantly reduce the number of jobs that people see if that's something that you want to do. But you could also have someone just see the view builder jobs, so you can kind of turn these off and on to get some different results. So just wanted to point that one out. I guess maybe the last thing here in the settings that I'll quickly point out, and then we're going to jump into a job and we'll see some of this demonstrated. We do have new tokens, several new tokens for the interior walls, for lofts, And also for the new accent colors that we added a few releases back. And so I did create a new output here just to demonstrate the tokens. We'll look at that for a job. To get the new tokens, you can come here. This is where you click to download a sample, and it'll give you all the tokens that we have available. And then you can kind of search through that document. So I created a template with just the new tokens. And we'll look at that. We'll see that in a job here. Some of these can also be used for packages. Anything that results in a number you can put into the calculations in the packages. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And we did add some additional information for a BizTrack output where it will multiply out the quantity by the length to give you a total. And that's really for panels, getting those a length that's quantity times length, and then it gives you a single number. If you do use BizTrack and that's something you want to do, give support a call or send us an email. And I do have the details for that. I'm not going to go into those details right now, but just so you know, if BizTrack is something you use and you have been waiting for something like that, I know it's something that some people have wanted to be able to use. We can get into more details. I'm not going to do that right now, but I just want to let you know. But you can call into support and send us an email, and then we'll coordinate that with you. Okay, so I'm back here at the home page, my list of jobs. I did start a job here just to demonstrate some of this new stuff. So I'm going to open that up. This is going to load in the 3D model. It's going to load in all the materials that are being used. It's going to load in all the pricing associated with this job. And so here is this job. Pretty basic, really just to demonstrate a few things here. And maybe we'll start here with this open top of wall trim. And I do have this open wall here. If we go over to the details, there is a section for open wall trim. So if we open this up, there is a new group of settings here, this open top of wall trim. And there are the length overrides where you can limit this to certain lengths that you stock in your inventory. And you can change the color for this piece of trim. And that's the same with all these other ones. We have had the open wall base trim previously. We also have just a plain old base trim, and we do have a plain old top of wall trim that are going to be under this wall trim section. But this new one here is the open top of wall trim. I had none as my default. I could go in and change that in my framing rules. But if we do drop this down, you'll see that the J channel is available. I added that as the usage, so now it is available for this open top of wall trim. Maybe I'll switch up the color here. I'll use this accent 1 color. And we'll just apply that now just so we can see where that shows up. And in this case, I have this open wall. It's going to show up at the top of the wall here. So anywhere you have an open wall, you can change up this open wall top of trim. That's going to be for gables. That'll also be for sidewalls and yeah, any sort of condition you have an open wall with the top of wall trim. So that's a new one. That's something you can use. And yeah, this is where and how it will come in. You can do this in advanced edit, by the way. You could go into individual walls and just change one wall to use a different open top of wall trim. And the one thing that I wanted to show in the settings, I just remembered that I forgot, is if you have these custom output categories where you can change these categories. And actually, I think this is going to be the case for anybody, even if you haven't changed these. You are going to have to add this new usage, the open top of wall, to one of these categories. And maybe we'll go back there, but just in the settings, right underneath that setup wizard, there's another group called output category. When you go into the output category, it's going to give you some information about where that is right now, and then you can just move that into whatever category you want. So you can customize and change up these categories, and you can decide where any usage goes into these categories. So in this case, we added a new one. You're going to have to tell the program where you want that to be. I already did that. I went in, and I think it puts it in framing. It's just kind of a default. And then I moved it from framing into my trim category, and so here it is showing up in our trim category. Okay, so I think that's enough with the open top of wall trim. So let's move on to some additional new features. One of them is we've added an additional option for dropping your gable. And so I'll show these real quick here. Underneath the roof framing, we do have several different settings related to the gables. I'm using a standard gable in this case, or a standard truss for my gable, as opposed to a separate gable truss. So I have that checked on. And this is a new setting. We've kind of adjusted these a little bit. We had no drop and we had top chord drop only. Now we've added a full drop, and that really means it's going to drop the full truss. So I have the full drop right now. That truss has been dropped down completely, so you can see that this truss here is coming across and sitting up here. This one is dropped down below. If I do a no drop, it's just going to be at the same plane as all the other trusses. So I'll apply that and hit refresh. So now that's up. If you drop, and you can, by the way, do this for the back and the front separately. If I do top only, it's going to drop down like the top chord of this below my purlins in this case, and my flush purlins, and then the full drop, it's going to just drop this entire truss. Is going to come down. You'll see the bottom chord is going to drop below that. So new option there if that's something that you want to use. And this does go into a new overhang style that we've added. So we have these outrigger overhangs, and we've now made them available with the flush purlins. So there's several different settings here. I'm not going to get super detailed into this because there are a lot of combinations that you can do. If you do want to do the overhang outrigger with the flush purlins, we can set up a time and we can meet with you in more detail. I'll kind of go over it quickly here just so you have an idea of the different things, and you can kind of play around with this, but we can also sit down with you and go through these. But this is going to be for flush purlins. I have the flush purlins here, and then as we go into this roof framing, I do have my standard gable. I have a full drop, and the overhang style is going to be this outrigger style. So if we can change that to get these overhangs with this outrigger kind of style. And then there are materials that are going to affect these. So let's see here. There is going to be, let's see here, is that? Okay, yeah, these are underneath the purlin framing. So if we drop down, in addition to some of those settings under roof, there are purlin framing settings that are going to affect this. And so these get into the actual outrigger materials and some of the blocking. So here you can play around with these, and for different conditions you might need to do some different things here, but I have none for an outrigger material. And so if we switch some of these things up, you will get some different results here. Let's see. So that's going to run this all the way through. If I do set up a gable outrigger material, it is going to basically use this. And it is running this up, these outriggers up to the second purlin, according to my spacing here. And so this one added in another gable purlin that's running up over the top. If you have that set to none like I did before, if you notice, you're going to get a little bit of a different framing condition here where it's throwing in some blocks in here, but it's running these guys long, these purlins coming across long through here out to the gable fascia. And there is a new checkbox, extend the gable blocking through overhang. And actually, I'm not sure if that's new, but that is going to have some impact here. This is really talking about this piece. So if you don't really want that to extend through there, you can get rid of that. The other thing that is new is this force overhang purlin, we're calling it. And that is this purlin here that you can see in the actual overhang space itself. So I'm forcing that to come in. It's just a new material that it's really treated like an overhang, but you can force that to come in, or it's treated like a purlin. You can force that to come in or not. So if you do want that, you can turn that on. And then, yeah, so there's other things you can play with here. There is this blocking material. You could say that's none. This is really, I think, going to be this blocking up here. So if I set that to none, okay, now it actually comes all the way down, and that's because I have my gable outrigger material to none. So right now we have nothing in there, but if we turn this back on, you'll see that we do get that that gable outrigger just coming up over the top of this. So there's several different ways that you can kind of manipulate these and get some different configurations. There are some different things going on if you don't have a gable overhang here. Some of these you might need to manipulate. So unfortunately, we just couldn't get away with kind of having several different settings and dials that you can turn here, but we can go over this with you, and I think once you kind of get the hang of it and get these set up, then it shouldn't be too hard to deal with. And then, of course, we can make changes and improvements to this. So if you do have different things you want to see or things not working, please let us know. These are difficult things because different people do frame things a lot of different ways. But yeah, so I think that's a pretty good overview of what that is. And then, let us know if you have feedback. And if you do want to set up a time, we can go into more detail on that with you. Okay.
Sean, we had a question from Kenny L. He asked, are these new features available already? My SmartBuild is not showing them currently. So once again, as we said at the beginning, guys, this is version 191. It is currently in beta. We've just recently released it to beta, so it's probably about a week before this is actually going to make it to the live site. So just so everyone knows.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. So next item here that I just wanted to bring up is we made some changes to how the slider door trims and framing get consolidated. We've had requests for this for quite a while, so this is a good thing that we got in here. But basically, I think the best way to look at this, I do have a little slider door here on this back gable wall. And if I go into this, maybe we'll start with the framing. With the track board support and this track board. And the way that this was working before is the program would break these at the opening. So you'd have a part here, a length, and then you'd have a part that ran across the opening, and then you'd have another part that came here. So you ended up with 3 different pieces of lumber, but now it's going to use the longest it can, and it's not going to break these up. And that is also going to be true for the trim parts here. So like this track cover, same kind of thing. Before you know, is breaking these up and it kind of would mess things up. So now it will, hopefully that is consolidating that correctly. Again, if something comes up or that's not working for you, then let us know. But I think that is all that needs to be said for that. And maybe one of the final things we'll do here in the job is take a look at some of the new tokens that we have. So you can see in this model here, I did do some interior walls here in the 2D mode. So I came into the 2D mode, I added these interior walls in here. I also added a loft up here, this loft. And so then I already input those before, and now if we return back to the 3D model, we can kind of toggle through some of this and just see that I didn't put any finish on these walls, but or do much else with these. But I did put a floor, and I did put in some interior stud frame walls. And this loft up here on top of it. And if I go to the job review, I went into the add miscellaneous, where you can just add in kind of special order items to your material list in whatever category you want. And you can just define all that information yourself. I put some of these in just to demonstrate a few of the new tokens, at least the ones that are available or make sense in this particular job. And so, and we'll go into an output and we'll take a look at all these as well. But, you know, lineal foot of the interior stud frame wall is a new one. So those are those walls we saw there. Lineal foot of interior wall. This one is a general category. You can see this is going to be the same number here. That's because I only have stud frame walls. There is another one that is lineal foot of interior post frame walls. So you can get a separate lineal footage for your interior post frame walls from your stud frame walls. This one is going to give you just a total. For any interior walls, it doesn't really care if it's post or if it's stud frame. And then square footage of lofts. This is a new one. We had the lofts. We didn't have the tokens, but now we do. So you do have square footage of lofts. And so these can be used in your calculations for packages and assemblies, to where you can use these numbers to calculate specific quantities of different materials that you need. So you could maybe base labor off of the square footage of the loft, so you could integrate that into some sort of calculation to, you know, as you add more lofts to this job, you'll get more labor because it's calculating it in, you know, in the background based off of the square footage. You need certain materials, nails or plates or hangers or whatever based off of lineal footage of the stud frame walls, hurricane ties or something. Then you can use those to calculate those, and you can have those added to your material list. So we have these new ones available, and just a couple here that I demonstrated in the job, but actually let's go into an output and we can see all of the different ones that you can use, because there's a few more here. So I'm going to hit save there, and then I'm going to go into my outputs. I have a whole bunch here. Here's the document template that I loaded in with just these new tokens. So I'll open that one. I am also going to do my assembly drawings, or I named them the framing drawings. So I'm going to demonstrate something else here that's new in the framing drawings. And yeah, I think that's the only ones we'll download. So I'll hit download here, and it's going to think about it for a second. It's going to put it onto my folder, and I'm going to make sure to share this. I have to switch over, and we'll start with these framing drawings. So here's our roofs with those outriggers. And then the thing that I wanted to show you that was new is we've added this additional dimension here. I'll zoom in a little bit, where it's going to give you a dimension from the slab to the top of the opening. So we have this full opening. This is 8'4" from grade. I do have a 4-inch slab here, and then you'll see we have this 8-foot dimension is from the top of the slab to the top of the opening. If you don't have a slab, this will be from grade. So that will come in, it'll give you grade to the top of the opening, but really it's meant for slab to the top of the opening. So that'll come through for all doors at this point, except if you do have doors that are that have a sill height. If they come up above grade or slab, so you can move these doors up. It's actually, we're not going to show this dimension right now, but we could. So if you do want to see that, let us know. Right now, this is really going to be for doors that are sitting on the slab or sitting on grade, and mostly meant for the slab. But that'll be for all openings. And so, yeah, here's going to be the rest, slider door. And then I did output this as a PDF, this document template. I saved it to come out as a PDF. So since I did all these PDFs together, it just puts them all into one booklet. You can do these separately. If you output them separately, download them separately, you'll get separate outputs. But here is a demonstration of all the new tokens. And why is this 0? Lineal foot of interior wall. I don't know. Mark is, I was expecting to see this number there.
I believe that's lineal foot of interior wall.
Oh, that's because I didn't put any finishes on it.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, well, that's a good thing to demonstrate then. Yep, I forgot about that. If you don't have any sort of a finish on there, this lineal foot of interior wall is not going to register. So that's really giving you the lineal footage of that finish. Because I did not put finishes on these walls, it's just the studs. But then you do have a separate lineal footage of interior stud frame wall. So here's that exact number. And then there also is wainscot and the upper sheathing for the interiors now as well. And yeah, that is for the finished materials. That's really going to be the sheathing panel material lineal footage. If you don't have that, you're going to get 0, but you can use this lineal footage if you don't have any finishes on there for the same kind of thing. So you have those two options. I'll jump down to the lofts real quick. So there's that square footage of the loft coming through. And then there is now a loft list. This is not something you can use in calculations. You can use these numbers to calculate things. You can also, have them listed out on some sort of a document or PDF like this. This loft list is not going to be used in calculations, obviously, but you can, similar to like a door and window list, we do have an attached building list. Now there's a loft list. It'll give you some details about the lofts, and it'll list all of them out. According to the job, what you have in there. We just have this one loft that I put in. So that can be integrated into your document templates. The other thing that we added are these accent colors. And I didn't really show those, but in addition to like the roof color, the wall color, the trim color, we do have these 4 accent colors that are kind of rovers. You can use these how you want. So any sort of piece of trim like that, open top of wall trim, I set to the accent color 1, and I use this crimson red. It is just new that we have these tokens that you can list these out. One thing to point out here is you can, in the software, you can rename these accent colors. This is the default names that come in. You can rename them to things like fascia and soffit color or whatever you want to call these. And so then when you in the job, it'll show the name that you've changed the accent color to. And that'll show on the material lists, I believe. Well, let's see, that'll just show up in terms of your options that you have to select those. So if somebody has different fascia colors, you can have the drop-down color to be fascia color, right? Well, yeah, we could go into some specific examples, but you can rename these. One thing though, it will not rename these here for you when they come through as tokens. I just kept these defaults, but if you're going to do a document template, you're going to want to put in your color name here if you are using this for a separate color. But basically what's going to happen is whatever you have for that accent one color name, whatever you've called it, that color is going to show up here where the token actually was. So the template that I used, this is just text. And then all these results here, this was the token. So there's a token for the lineal footage of interior wall, and there's a token for accent color 1. You'll just need to make sure this accent color 1 matches up with the whatever you might have changed your name, if accent color 1, what you changed it to, just that token is in the right place in your document that you're creating. So hopefully that makes sense. We can look at that in more detail if we need to, but basically you have these accent colors available. You can list out those colors on your document template however you want to do that. And then you have these tokens for calculations, or you can put them on your document templates as well. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to have to reshare my screen here for a second, I think. Yeah, so I'll share this screen again, and we'll go back here to the model. And let me think if there's anything else here that we would want to go through. There is one more important feature here that I wanted to show. So this is going to have to do with the soffits and the overhangs. So we do now have the option for a sloped soffit where it just matches the roof line as opposed to these panels or kind of box soffits. So if you go down to the fascia and soffit group and you look for the soffit style, there is a new option here of sloped panels. If we switch over to that, then it is going to adjust things here. You know, this panel, you could see that panel length actually adjusted, and we get these kind of sloped panels here. Quite a few people have asked for that for a while, so now we do have that option available. You can adjust the margin here, where you can kind of I think that's going to take away a little bit. You can adjust that. I have 1/2 inch that you can see. Well, you can't really see it, it's still covered, but you can mess around with those margins to kind of change the length of these. But and then if we go into the panels here, I do have my soffit, so you can see how those are going to be coming in. There might be some different lengths. We might have to do some adjustments in terms of how your panels are, the different lengths you may have, but I think these are just random lengths, so these are just coming in. So yeah, we might have to take a look at some of those lengths, but basically you do have that option now to have those as sloped. If you always do these, you can go into your framing rules and set this as the default. You can use sloped panels. You will have to go in and change that in the framing rules on your own. But yep, that's now an option, and we can do some more work on that. If you do have feedback, again, let us know, and we can do some tweaks and changes to that. Yeah, I think that's really about it on that one. Anything else that I wanted to show here? I don't think so. So one thing since we talked about those colors, for example, like if you drop down this Eave Soffit color, you can do Eave or Soffit colors different. And you have these options here of wall, roof, trim, wainscot. So you can match the different colors. And then we have these accent colors that I was talking about. I haven't renamed these. You could rename these. And you could say like, I guess in this case, Soffit colors. And so you could have a different group of Soffit colors. This could show up as Soffit color. And maybe especially with like an e-modeler, if you're customer facing, you can kind of set these up to where it makes a little more sense, a little easier to pick these. It wouldn't say accent 1. It would say whatever you want it to say. And it would also show up here to where these are accent color 1, 2, and 3, and 4, but you could change that to Soffit if you wanted. And it's going to show up as Soffit. And then you could use these for other purposes, or you can actually just hide these as well. So you can kind of customize these a little bit where you can get your colors a little more customized. And then they can be options for different types of materials that you choose. And then you can output those onto your document templates for quotes and things if you want to specify those out specifically. So just a little bit more background on that. And then I think having said that, I think that is everything that I just wanted to get into here. Pretty high level overview of all the new stuff. Like Keith mentioned, we are working on performance things and more output improvements in the background. Those are things that we kind of will have to release at a later date. Again, this isn't beta software right now. We are not releasing this. We're still doing some testing on this, but we'd like to get it out there. And you can go up to beta and play around with these things. And if you find any issues, please let us know. We can try to get those fixed. And then like Mark said, we're going to try to release this software probably about a week from now. We were shooting for a little bit earlier, but looks like it's probably going to be early next week or early mid next week. And then in the meantime, you can go to beta if you want to do that. If you need some help getting set up with that beta or getting into it, let us know. We can help you with that. And we will send out information when this gets released. We'll let you know. So these are things that are coming up. We're going to do some more testing. But at this point, unless anybody here at SmartBuild has anything else they want to bring up, then we can just open it up now to discuss any of these new options. Anything that you want to get into at all, we can talk about. So thank you.
There was a question from Chad. I tried to answer in the comments just to Chad, just to make sure I understood what his question was.
Okay.
But yes, the sliding door track, the sliding door trim material will all work the same. Instead of it cutting at the start of the door, putting something across the door, and then again starting at the door, it's going to be bossed though by where the longest piece can fit. If you have a 10-foot door and you only have 10 footers, well, it'll try to put a 10-foot piece going across there. Or if you have a larger piece, it'll put the largest piece you have and then cut it from there and go on to probably using whatever shortest piece you have. So it should all work with the usages that we have. So they're all the same, whether it's the framing part or the trim part, if that helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really just the consolidation and the way those get laid out and cut.
His example was currently on the live site with a 12-foot slider. It gives you a 12-foot piece above the door. And if it's a split slider, you got 6 feet on either side to give you 2 6-footers.
Mm-hmm.
So it don't do that no more.
Right.
Yeah.
Delmar did ask about those accent colors showing up on the output as accent 1, 2, 3, 4. And I do know that I think we've talked about that before, Sean, but we didn't do the change to make it show what the new name is, even if you rename it on the framing rule? Want to talk about that a bit?
Right. Yep.
Right. The renaming of those colors is only on this list that we're looking at right here. So if you go to main building and you click on colors, you're going to see you can change that accent 1 to something else. Under the hood, it is still accent 1, accent 2, accent 3, accent 4.
Right. And I mean, we can definitely talk about that more, but to me, I don't see it being a huge deal because, you know, that's really just what we call it. And so when you download the list, it won't give you the exact name that you called it, but you can match them up. But when you get into like an actual document output, you change this to what you want it to be. And so it's a little bit of coordination you have to do. You do just kind of have to check to make sure, okay, this accent color 1 is the fascia color.
Yeah, you
So
just kind of have to remember that you changed accent color 1 to be fascia color or whatever you changed it to.
Yeah. And if you're doing a template, you should really only have to do that once.
Right.
And one, yeah. But yeah, we can certainly talk about that if it becomes a problem. It was just one of those things where it's more work to do than it was for the value that we got out of it. But you can change our minds.
Yeah, the real impetus for that was we allowed you to do things like you can set your fascia color to use accent color 1. Your fascia material uses accent color 1, and let's say your wainscot trim uses accent color 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it sure is nice if you can then go in and say, your designers, the people actually modeling buildings, don't have to remember that, oh, accent color 1 is the fascia color or the soffit color, and accent color 3 is the wainscot trim color. You can actually just change that name right there for them.
Yep. We could hide these guys as well.
Yeah.
So you might have to make sure you coordinate what you have here with your document template.
Yeah. And Delmar said, hey, don't change it just for me. There's more important things on the list. That's not a hill he's willing to die on. So enough said about that. Urban Zook asked about, will the output tokens now show the actual colors description instead of trim color or roof color?
I didn't quite catch that one.
I didn't either. He says, will the output tokens now show the actual colors description instead of trim color or roof color? I think he's asking if you have your wainscot trim set to trim color, is the token for wainscot color going to say trim color, or is it going to say slate blue if that's what your trim color is set to?
Yeah.
So if you go to details and go to it's really the trim parts. So if you go to details and go to ridge cap, yeah, they give you an option to say my ridge cap color is going to be roof color because I want it to match the roof. Or you could say, nope, it's going to be trim color because you want it to match the trim. You could even say it's going to be wall liner color, which would be a little silly, but you can do it if you want. And so I think what Irvin is asking, is when you have a token in your document that says, hey, what is the roof color? What is the ridge cap color? All that token is reporting right now is what is the color? What is ridge cap color set to?
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like, Irvin, you're asking for, you'd like to have a token that when you put ridge cap color on there, it says slate blue if that's what your roof color is set to, rather than saying roof color. I think if we had a token that was sort of parallel to ridge cap color, that was ridge cap color name.
Mm-hmm.
So without messing with the behavior of the existing tokens, which is, I think, a mistake. Yeah, go ahead and search for ridge cap. So roof color will actually report the roof color, but ridge cap color,
Let's see.
I don't know if that's even a. Oh, okay. So it is ridge cap color type is what we called them. Yeah. So ridge cap color type is the token that will resolve to roof color or wall color or trim color or
Mm-hmm.
liner color or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. So if you output this, what you would see is job ridge cap color type equals roof color. That's
Mm-hmm.
not what he wants. He wants it to be whatever the roof color is, which, you know, you can find out by looking for roof color and say, hey, roof color is set to slate blue. But ridge cap color type. So it sounds like if you had a ridge cap color name, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Roof color name. So very similar to the accent color name, it just reports the actual color. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be ridge cap color.
Yeah. So, you know, ceiling trim color is going to report something like slate blue or, you know, scarlet yellow or whatever. I don't know what color you guys use, but it's going to report the name of the color that you're after or that you selected. Whereas interior top of wall trim color type, which is actually the token that we have, simply reports that you've told us that you want the interior top of wall trim color to be the same as roof color or wall color, interior wall color, or interior trim color.
Yep. Yeah, we don't report colors for individual trim parts.
Yeah,
that would be a good.
Found the problem. Yeah, it sounds like that's what Irvin's asking for. So
yeah, that makes sense. So we don't do that now. This is not a change that we've done in this particular release, but we could do that in the future.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Irvin.
Mm-hmm. That was a good suggestion. All right. Anything else from the chat?
No, nothing else. Nothing came in.
Okay. Well, anything else? Kind of open forum here. Feel free to send.
Chad just put in a question. So is there a setting to stagger the joints in truss carriers? So whenever you have truss carriers that are stacked, I think, if that's what you're talking about, Chad, if you have stacked truss carriers, we just line up the joints where they line up. But I know the suggestion has been in the past that they stagger the joints for nailing, and it does throw off the lengths that they need to send out. So
Yeah, we actually just talked about that the other day. So if you have an interior and exterior, as well as stacked, though we don't really do stacked.
Well, not stacked. Whenever you sandwich the boards for 4-ply or 3-ply,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that kind
I
of.
think it
Or
would
even just
Probably
double. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, we don't do that, but we did talk about that the other day, and that one is pretty high up on the list.
I believe it is scheduled for 192.
Yeah, did we schedule it for? So yeah, the next release.
Good comment, Chad. Good for bringing that up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. And then-
affirming.
And he also said they like to run different materials from the inside to the outside carrier. Don't do that.
Yeah.
I believe that's on the list too, a different material for the inside and outside truss carrier.
Mm-hmm.
We have a similar option for door headers, I believe, where you can have different material on the
Right.
inside and the outside.
Yep. Okay. In out.
Currently not for truss carriers.
Yep. That is, let's see, the in-out girt.
Yeah, so they want a similar option for the truss carrier. Brandon at Chelsea Lumber says they run an LVL as the inside carrier and a 2x as the outside carrier. The 2x really isn't even a carrier; it's just closure.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, maybe we can
You
try
should
to
run
integrate-
LVL.
Sure.
Yeah, you should run LVL on both. You can sell more material.
It's too much.
Yeah, I believe that's on the list as well.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Feel free to unmute as well if you prefer.
And Chad also asked about staggering the joints on the skirt board.
There you go. Yeah.
That would make sense. I was actually thinking about that, but I wasn't going to bring it up.
More work. Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
From the
Same.
interior to exterior, or whenever we stack them. Probably with both. Because we do
Yeah.
stacked skirt boards.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a little bit trickier. Stacked skirt boards is pretty straightforward because we put all of the rows of skirt boards in at the same time. If they want to stagger them inside versus outside, that's a little more trickier.
Mhm.
Are skirt boards more structural? Do they need? I mean, that to me that makes sense staggering because if it would be a structural board, but is that part of the structure? Do they figure that in? Because it's so close to the bearing. I'm just curious.
What was the question?
Are skirt boards like the truss carrier is definitely something that's structural. You kind of want that truss carrier up there. But is there any structural part of a skirt board?
I think so, yeah.
Do they figure that? It's just so close to the foundation. It just made me wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. I mean, we have a lot of experts on here that know more than I do.
Just curious.
Yeah, so Brandon said they stack 3 rows high on the exterior of the barn, and that's what we're showing here in this. And yeah, we do. We break them all at the same place because it's just simpler to put them up that way. But Chris said he'd like to see the staggered skirt boards option if possible. So in this particular example that we're looking at here, you'd like to see that second row give you a short piece, a long piece in the center, and then a short piece on the other end? Ooh. Chad just threw another wrinkle at it. When they do 3 rows, they'd like to see the bottom 2 rows to be treated and the top row to be untreated.
Oh boy. No, yep. That makes sense.
I think this is the part where you say, "Thank you for sharing, Chad."
Well, we can certainly record that, and it could be a future.
Yeah, we'll have to think about how, because it's not just 3 rows. It's some people put 6 rows. So
I mean, could we say, I missed the details on that. Could we say the bottom skirt row is pressure treated and the rest are this other material?
we could, but in his case, the bottom 2 rows are pressure treated.
So, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So,
So, yeah, that would be a little bit complicated to do, but I mean, we certainly could do that.
yeah, it's just, what do these questions look like?
Yeah.
In this case, it's pressure treated 2x6, 3 rows. Boom, end of discussion.
Sean, on this job, go to wall girt framing and uncheck or check on the staggered girts. I get staggered skirt boards when I do that.
Sorry, repeat
Go
that
up
for
to
me.
wall girt framing in the framing rules. You're right there.
Uh-huh.
And you've got stagger girts. Oh, I've got different size girts. You've probably got like 20 plus footers. You got girt length overrides. Make that girt length override just 16. See what happens. It still didn't do it. Oh, you've got wide spacing.
You've got 10 foot. Yeah, you've got 10 foot spacing. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just I'm looking at my my job, and it's giving me staggered skirt boards. The bottom one is staggered differently than the second one, but the third one is staggered the same. So it's trying to stagger them.
Mm-hmm. Same kind of concept.
Yeah.
Potentially here. Stagger skirt boards. Checkbox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
well,
staggering the girts, you've got 16 foot and 20 foot girts. So if I'm going to do this wall, the only option is either I do 20 footers and a 20 footer and a 20 footer. If you go to your wall girt framing though and put in 10 and 20 as your lengths.
Yeah, that would probably work too.
Well, he cleared it out and it didn't seem to do anything. So. It also has to do with what lengths you have.
You could just go to your post spacing or change your building size if you want to see it. But if you change your post spacing, it'll have more areas to be able to stagger.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
That's what I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first row and then the second row and the third row both had the same stagger, so that would be different. Chris says the skirt boards have more lateral pressure, so staggering them helps to spread the pressure across the end splice.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And that's because they're actually piling dirt up against the bottom 2 skirt boards.
Oh.
Brandon said they treat the bottom 2 rows because they're going to pile dirt up against them. But the third row is untreated because the steel actually stops on that third row. So they don't want the steel hitting against the treated lumber because the treated material corrodes the steel.
No kidding.
Right, right. So could we get away with the bottom two are pressure treated and anything above that is this other material?
No, I don't know because
How much can we get away with? But yeah, that makes sense.
what are the different options that people would have for skirt boards, and in particular, what are the questions that we ask? So right now, if you go to skirt boards, we ask you, what's your skirt board material? And how many rows would you like? And do you,
So we might need something like lower skirt board material, lower number of rows.
Yeah, we do that with it's extra questions. It's a specific piece, but for stud walls, right? We have a bottom skirt board and then top of the bottom skirt board.
well, we have a
bottom.
We have a bottom track or a bottom plate and a very bottom plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it seems doable in that sense, but it's another question altogether.
Yeah. A few more questions. Do that. I have that recorded, so that's certainly something we can get on the list.
Brandon said maybe Wainscot skirt board, but I'm not even sure what that would mean.
Skirt board.
It's just
We have
bottom
a
skirt
different
board
option
and top
for-
skirt board. It just seems like that would probably be the best way to do it.
Yeah, or lower skirt board and upper skirt board, and
Would we
by
need to
default,
have?
the current setting would just be this is your lower skirt board material and your number of lower skirt board rows of lower skirt boards. And then we'd have two more questions that you could say upper skirt board material and upper
Below
skirt
grade.
board rows.
Below grade and above grade.
No.
You could do that, but they're not always below grade.
Yeah.
But that's the concept. Anyway, yeah, these are kind of details
Yeah.
we gotta flesh out.
Yeah.
I mean, you want them to be pressure treated if they're any portion of it's below grade.
Well, it's not below grade, it's above grade, but they piled dirt up on it.
Well, I mean, the user specifying that. It's just a way to kind of call what we call it over here. Could tie it into the grade. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's have this.
That's
let's-
top row singular versus bottom rows, but then Jeff is going to come along, and he doesn't use our software yet, but he's going to come along and say, well, I do 2 rows of treated and then 4 rows of untreated on top of it.
Yeah.
So who knows? We try and be all things to everyone, and that makes for some confusion. And so the struggle is always how can we give you the maximum flexibility without making you fill out hundreds and hundreds of questions? And I'm afraid that ship has sailed, because
Yeah.
that's why we have so darn many questions.
Mhm.
All right.
I think the way what Keith said, the number of upper skirt board and the number of rows of lower skirt board would probably cover everybody's the best, rather than, and I get what Sean was saying about it's just the name, it doesn't mean it's below grade. We use, when we stack extra rows, we typically do it in a say a livestock facility, where you have the cattle pen there and you need some kind of barrier that's not steel, 4 feet high. So we would be using treated 4 feet above the ground, because it's exposed.
Yeah.
But so I think the way Keith said it, given the option of number of rows for the two different materials.
Yeah, just lower number of rows and upper number of rows. And then you could have a different material for lower rows and upper rows.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or you could have the same material, which wouldn't make much sense, but you could do it.
Yeah, I guess you could. There's a couple different
And then
combinations
you
there.
Yeah. I only put in upper rows. I didn't put anything for the lower rows. Well, that means that your upper rows are sitting on top of your lower rows, and since you don't have any lower rows, that's 0. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
the key is that we understand the issue, and there's a use case for I need X number of rows of treated material with X number of rows of untreated, or a different material on top of them. And then add on to insult to injury, we want to stagger those rows. And then also stagger the inside rows differently from the outside rows, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I think so.
There we go. We have the requirements.
There we go.
We can add it to the list. All right. Thank you, guys.
Good stuff.
As long as we can stagger them now, the most important thing to get the proper material list quantity, having mixed and deal later. Update, not sure if the inside versus outside stagger on the skirt board is as important. Yeah. So like Paul said earlier on, it's the skirt boards are structural because they're resisting a lateral load. They're not structural in the same way that a double truss carrier is structural. In the case of a double truss carrier, you can't have two truss carriers breaking on, you don't want them breaking on the same post. You want to stagger those breaks so that you get more support out of them, because they are
they're taking gravity and lateral and
they're acting together.
Yeah. Okay, yep.
Whereas the skirt boards, inside and outside skirt boards, are completely different animals, and so if they stagger, that doesn't really matter as much. So truss carrier stagger for vertical load carrying capability, as well as lateral to some extent. But then for the skirt boards, staggering the rows and also being able to have, we've got the lower skirt board covered, the upper skirt boards. Right now, you'd almost have to do those as a package. But if we had number of rows of upper skirt board with a different material, then you could do pressure treated for 2 rows and 1 row of standard. All right. Those are all good enhancement requests, guys. We appreciate it.